software. I haven't yet done anything outside of my own little
You can see this on screen right now. The president's
kind of
Twitter account has been suspended.
It's not as difficult as it seems or as exotic.
All you can see if you go to @Donald Trump at the moment, it says account suspended. Everything has been sort of wiped off of the social media platform. Twitter has also released a statement just in the last several minutes about this, and I could just read this to you. It says, after close review of recent tweets from the @RealDonaldTrump account and the context around them, we permanently suspended the account due to the risk of further incitement of violence. That is from the Twitter Safety Department at the Twitter social media platform. Well, this is obviously an extraordinary development because, as you know, one of the defining aspects of the Trump presidency has been his use of his Twitter account. He has fired people by Twitter. He has announced policy changes by Twitter. He has announced pardons by Twitter. And he has incited violence on Twitter, as we know. We saw this leading up to the events on January 6th. And Twitter is saying because of the president's potential to further incite violence, they are shutting down his account. Now, obviously, Twitter has come under a great deal of scrutiny, a lot of pressure from social media safety advocates in recent weeks, saying that the social media platform hasn't gone far enough. In recent days, we saw they took down some of the president's tweets, and prior to that, they had been labeling the president's tweets in the run-up to January 6th, pointing out when he would say false things about the election results and so on. But this is a dramatic development, Wolf, no question about it. Suspending permanently the social media platform says the president's Twitter account. Now, one has to wonder, Wolf, what this will do to the president's state of mind. We know he's been unstable. We're hearing from our sources that he has lost it and so on in recent days. What does this do to the president now that he no longer has access to this Twitter account, which he talks about all the time as a way of going around the media and so on? He doesn't have that anymore, at least not for the time being. And it makes you wonder, covering this president, knowing how unstable things have been in recent days, whether or not this pushes the president further to the edge as impeachment is being contemplated, the 25th Amendment is being contemplated, and so on. He can't vent on Twitter. One of the things we've noticed over the weekends covering this president, he won't be doing the work of the American people. He'll be tweeting his grievances and so on. He can't do that, it seems, this weekend during a critical time, the end days of his presidency. Will.
I'm Stanley Tucci. I'm traveling across Italy to discover how the food is as unique as the people and their past.
Oh my God. So
given the perceived threat that he poses, my question to you is not so much about the role that Congress should play in impeachment, but rather, should President Trump, in your estimation, remain in office?
I didn't think, look, I've been saying for now well over a year, he is not fit to serve. He is not fit to serve. He's one of the most incompetent presidents in the history of the United States of America. And so the idea that I think he shouldn't be out of office yesterday is not the issue. The question is, what happens with 14 days left to go or 13 days left to go? And I think that what 81 million people stood up and said, it's time for him to go. And the United States Senate voted 93 to 6 to confirm that we should be sworn in. We were duly elected. So I think it's important to get on with the business, getting him out of office. The quickest way that that will happen is us being sworn in on the 20th. What action happens before or after that is a judgment for the Congress to make, but that's what I am looking forward to. Him leaving office. I was told that on the way up here, way over here, that he indicated he wasn't going to show up at the inauguration. One of the few things he and I have ever agreed on. It's a good thing I'm not showing up.
Earlier, you'd said that if you'd hope that he would show up only in the sense that it was valuable to send a signal to the world about the transfer of power. You've clearly changed your perspective on that. Because
he has clearly demonstrated, he's exceeded even my worst notions about him. He's been an embarrassment to the country.
A little bit of static
Embarrassed
in the
us
background,
around the world.
Your
Not
audio
worthy.
is slightly
Not
lower,
worthy to
but
hold that office.
you're readable. You're perfectly
If
readable.
we were
readable.
6 months out, we should be moving everything to get him out of office, impeaching him again, trying to invoke the 25th Amendment, whatever it took to get him out of office. But I am focused now on us taking control as president and vice president on the 20th, and to get our agenda moving as quickly as we can.
With respect to what you just said about the inauguration and that it's a good thing that the president is not coming, but what about the vice president, Mike Pence?
Oh, yeah, that actually sounded even better. So
I think
guess
it's important that
made all the difference. No, it sounds fine.
as much as we can stick to what have been the historical precedents of how and the circumstances in which an administration changes should be maintained. And so if the vice president is welcome to come, we'd be honored to have him there and to move forward in the transition.
Have you spoken to him at all?
No, I haven't.
And you have called for unity and healing in this country, but after the events of Wednesday, does that make your job easier or harder?
I think it makes my job easier, quite frankly.
And hey, Melissa, that
I've
was
had
a
a
great
number
time.
of my
Thank you
Republican colleagues,
for being there and coming
former
back
colleagues,
and
I
talking with
used to serve in the
Alex. I
Senate for a
enjoyed
long
that so
time.
much.
Call me.
NC
They
side,
are,
I
many
had
of
to
them
go
are
give you
as
an
outraged and disappointed and embarrassed and mortified by the president's conduct as I am and Democrats are. And I think I have said from the beginning, and I have not changed my view.
Well, that was a lot of
My
fun, Tony.
overarching objective
Mexico.
is to unify this country.
All right. Well,
we must unify the country.
Yeah, that was
and I
really
think
a lot
that
of fun.
you've heard me say
hope
this before, and I apologize for repeating myself. But understandably, the questions are repetitive and good. I mean, they're not being critical of the questions. And that is that there's two ways people are inspired: by inspirational leaders and by terrible leaders. By terrible leaders.
Oh, well, yes, we should.
What this president has done is rip the Band-Aid all the way off to let the country know who he is and what he's about. How thoroughly unfit for office he is.
The national traffic system. The word radiogram did not seem to be a word he knew. That's okay. His English is 5,000 times better than my German. I mean, I can just manage, like, where's the bathroom? My car is broken down. I can read it, but man, speaking is hard. So yeah, I'm very impressed with his English. We'll just take it slow and explain things
Democrats
by
say
email.
an aggressive impeachment timeline is 6 to 7 days. That would put a first vote in the middle of next week. Now, Republicans are cautious. Most prefer to run out the clock.
Oh, well, now
and say
that you
another
mentioned it,
impeachment
I
would
did
only
already
deepen the
send
nation's
an email, and I
political
copied
wars.
you
But there
while
are
he was
Republicans who say the
still
president
on,
must be held accountable.
Echolink.
Senator Ben Sass of Nebraska
yeah, you should have that.
is one.
And yeah, a lot of fun. And you're right.
I don't think,
and I just assume that everybody knows where a radiogram is. Isn't that funny?
If they come together
You
and have a
explained it very well, though,
I
so
will
thank you.
definitely consider
Alrighty.
whatever articles they might move.
On the side.
What he did was wicked.
Republican sources are telling CNN there are more Republicans open to voting yes on impeaching and removing the president if the charges drafted by the Democrats are viewed as reasonable by Republicans. Now, the president today trying to blunt any Republican support for his removal. In a tweet, he warns his 75 million voters remain, quote, a giant voice in Republican politics, and says they best not be disrespected. The defiant tone there just hours after a much more subdued video that, yes, finally acknowledged Joe Biden's victory, but that aides say the president taped only to quash rumblings his cabinet was thinking about invoking the 25th Amendment.
Now Congress has certified the results. A new administration will be inaugurated on January 20th. My focus now turns to ensuring a smooth, orderly, and seamless transition of power.
The impeachment strategy call happening right now is just one consequential new piece of the rioting fallout. The effort to bring the rioters to justice now includes a federal murder investigation. Capitol Police Officer Brian Sicknick died last night from injuries he sustained in that insurrection.
We are not enemies, but friends. We must not be enemies. Though passion may have strained, it must not break our bonds of affection. Lincoln, divided we stand.
Capitol Police Officer Brian Sticknick is dead this morning, died overnight from his injuries suffered during the insurrection. How responsible is the president for that?
It's first and foremost, it's heartbreaking. My heart goes out to his family again. As someone who served in the Capitol, just like at the White House, you become friends with the Secret Service. I knew many of the Capitol Police. They are good law enforcement officers who put their lives on the line to protect our nation's leaders. And it's awful. This all could have been avoided. That would be my message. But the other message I want to make sure that the American people understand, and like I said, the 74 million people who supported this president, that is okay. Vote, get out and vote for Republicans if that's what you believe in. We can stand by the policies, but at this point, we cannot stand by the man. When the moment called for leadership, he did not do the right thing, and lives were lost because of it.
Can I just ask you to be declarative about this? Will you say that the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, lied to the American people?
He did on the election, and people around him know better. We know that the results were not going to be overturned. We knew that it was a stunt to carry this on for days longer. And I have to commend my former boss, Vice President Pence, who is a man of conviction and just the highest level of integrity. He did what his constitutional duty was. He wasn't going to rewrite the Constitution to get the outcome that he wanted.
So, Alyssa, you quit the first week of December because you say it was then that you began to realize what might happen. And you do know that there are those asking this morning, what took you so long? What took you so long?
And that's fair. And something I want to be clear about is I believed in the policy agenda and much of what we accomplished, and I am proud of much of it. You know, creating the most inclusive economy in American history, record low Black unemployment, Hispanic unemployment, female unemployment. I'm somebody who believes in economic opportunity. And I was willing to serve. And I also believe anytime you're asked to serve your nation, you should seriously consider saying yes. But when I lost I knew I couldn't influence outcomes when this runaway train of the election was stolen, got wind underneath it. And that's when it was time for me to step down. I wasn't going to mislead people. People I love, people I care about were believing it. They were saying, no, Alyssa, I think he's still going to pull it off. And I would plead with people personally and privately, like, please no, he's not going to. We lost the election, and that is okay. That is what happens in a democracy. Politics is cyclical. But this was bound. If you tell people their vote was stolen, so foundational to who we are as a country, of course it's going to end in violence and in riots, and it's awful.
Insurrection at the Capitol. USA! How did it happen? Who is behind it? Where do we go from here? Wolf Blitzer hosts CNN Special Report, The Trump Insurrection, tomorrow at 10.
Do you believe that 12 days gives you enough time for impeachment and removal, or would this just be a ceremonial message sent?
You do not need 12 days for the 25th Amendment to be invoked. You can do that in the next 12 hours. But if they don't do it, I do believe that within the next 6 or 7 days, we can impeach. Now, impeach will not remove. That's the problem here. Because if you were impeached, that's simply an indictment. You would then have to go to the Senate to be tried. And it would be the Senate that would have to do what is necessary to remove him from office. So no, I do not believe 13 or 14 days are enough to run that. But we sure enough for the vice president and the cabinet members, for 2 cabinet members to resign. That says to me, they're running away from their responsibility. If they feel that strongly, they would stay there and wait on this meeting so they can cast 2 of the votes that are necessary to invoke the 25th Amendment. They're running away.
Insurrection at the Capitol. USA! How did it happen? Who is behind it? Where do we go from here? Wolf Blitzer hosts CNN Special Report, The Trump Insurrection, tomorrow at 10.
You fist bumped Vice President Mike Pence. Why and what did that mean to you?
Look, what I was saying I disagree with so many things he's done, including, as you were saying, standing with this president. But the point is, at this moment, he was willing to read the results and declare Joe Biden and Kamala Harris were the president and vice president of the United States starting January 20th. I thought that was significant because, as you know, we have a huge part of the country, thanks to Donald Trump and his enablers, who don't actually believe that this has happened. They don't believe that they won the election. So I thought the fact that Pence stood up, as well as, could I say, my Republican colleagues who voted with us, 93 senators rejected these scurrilous claims and baseless objections together and spent the whole day together, including, by the way, the moment when Joe Biden gave remarks, and this hasn't been widely reported, and we were all shoved together in a room, and the minute Joe Biden came on, silence came over the room. The entire Senate watched his speech with respect and clapped at the end. That happened, Chris. So to me, these were moments that I will never forget, including at 3:30 in the morning when the only senators left were Senator Blunt and myself as the head of the Rules Committee, and then the vice president, and we walked over with those remaining ballot boxes after Josh Hawley's ridiculous objection in Pennsylvania had been outvoted, and we walked over to the House and were greeted by Speaker Pelosi, and we then finished the reading of the roll call, did our job, and declared the winner of the 2020 election. So as horrible as the day was, that moment was the moment you cherish for our democracy. Democracy prevailed.
Insurrection at the Capitol. USA! How did it happen? Who was behind it? Where do we go from here? Wolf Blitzer hosts CNN Special Report, The Trump Insurrection, tomorrow at 10.
Just horrifying because things had just gone too far.
For 2 long months, Georgia's Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger endured, standing in the firing line of Trump's baseless attacks.
He's an enemy of the people.
And even with death threats against his own family, he never budged.
We believe that we do have an accurate election.
No, I know you don't.
And then Trump's reckless lies of a rigged election culminated with this.
People have been spun up for 2 months about the election results. People have been misrepresenting, the facts, spreading this disinformation, saying whatever they wanted to out in social media. And there were consequences, and we saw what those consequences were yesterday.
And when you say people, specifically, we're talking about President Trump. He was out at the Ellipse.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol.
As we all know, right before the riots broke out, telling his supporters to walk on the Capitol. This was incited by the president. Do you blame President Trump, and what would you say to him?
Well, obviously, that's why I've said from day one that we have to be really mindful of our speech, because we can't spin people up and play people and get them into emotional frenzy, emotional state. Deal with the facts, and the facts are on our side. We had fair, honest elections in Georgia.
Did he betray our country?
I believe that we have to really recognize when you hold a high office like that you're really called to call people up to a higher standard of behavior, that maybe you don't like an answer, you don't like a result, but you never want to go down the road of violence. At the end of the day, that lady lost her life. I've lost my oldest son. So I know what her parents are going through today, that grief that they're having. And it seems so needless.
And it seems this was the last straw for Raffensperger, who just last month still declared himself a Trump supporter.
And you still support President Trump despite him sowing doubt in the integrity of the election?
Yeah, I wish he would have won.
Now he admits things have changed.
Do you regret that vote? Do you still prefer that he had won this past election?
Many of the actions that he's taken since then were not what you would expect from a president. When something like this happens, then his accomplishments really get negated, they get obscured, and you actually go out with a black mark on your record. And it's a shame it had to come to that. It's also a shame that many people, political leaders, elected political leaders in the Republican Party, didn't have the courage to stand and say, Mr. President, here's what the real numbers are. And I believe the real numbers.
But I mean, he still does have a grip on the party, clearly, and he still has a grip on his supporters.
I think after today, I think there'll be a reevaluation of a lot of things.
Including a re-evaluation of how 2 incumbent Republican senators lost their seats to Democrats, making Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff the first Democrats to win Senate seats in Georgia in 20 years.
President Trump really hurt the Republican Party here on the senator runoffs, and them getting involved in that, they would have just tended to the knit and focused on their races. They would have done well. They came up short. He filled up stadiums. I get that. But at the end of the day, you got to fill up the ballot box with your vote. The other side in this race did a better job than we did as Republicans.
Raffensperger's party may have lost, but he trusts democracy will prevail, as it did in Georgia. Through the chaos, Raffensperger hasn't lost his sense of humor. He credits his wife and sons for keeping him grounded.
They're real proud. They have some fun with it at times. But they're real proud. They gave me a beautiful framed picture, and it was the Lukovich article of people that were in the boxing ring, and I was the referee. And so it was kind of like that whimsical humor, and so we had a good laugh over it. And so, and that's good, because it keeps me humble, and it keeps me real.
Well, they see you as a referee, and is that how you see yourself?
In this job, yes. And, and that's why the players need to learn their job is to win the game. It's not the referee to make one call or the other so you can go ahead and score a touchdown. Play the game fair and go out and, play your guts out. Leave it all on the field.
Washington is still reeling today after a mob of President Trump's supporters, incited by his lies, breached the Capitol and wreaked havoc on a sacred constitutional process. President Trump didn't appear publicly today as aides who were shaken by his behavior headed for the exits. Transportation Secretary Elaine Chao became the first member of Trump's cabinet to resign in protest today, telling staff in an email that what happened in Washington was a, quote, traumatic and entirely avoidable event. Adding, "It has deeply troubled me in a way that I simply cannot set aside." Chao, who is married to Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, joins over half a dozen officials who have now resigned. That's right, we own it! Including Trump's deputy national security advisor and his former chief of staff, who was serving as a special envoy.
I can't stay here. Not after yesterday. You can't look at that yesterday and think I want to be a part of that in any way, shape, or form.
Even those who used to work for Trump are breaking with him. Former Attorney General Bill Barr rebuked the president in a statement that read, "Orchestrating a mob to pressure Congress is inexcusable. The president's conduct yesterday was a betrayal of his office." Fearful of mass resignations, Trump committed to a peaceful transition of power overnight in a statement that had to be posted to an aide's Twitter account because his was suspended. Trump said, "Even though I totally disagree with the outcome and the facts bear me out, nevertheless, there will be an orderly transition on January 20th.
We love you. You're very special.
His words had less to do with a change in heart after sympathizing with those on Capitol Hill and more to do with growing conversations about removing him from office using the 25th Amendment.
If the Vice President and the Cabinet do not act, the Congress may be prepared to move forward with impeachment. My members are very much interested, as are, my phone is exploding with impeach.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi calling Trump a very dangerous person.
This is urgent. This is emergency of the highest magnitude.
Though invoking the 25th Amendment is unlikely to happen, at least one Republican is joining in on the call.
The president is unfit, and the president is unwell. And the president must now relinquish control of the executive branch voluntarily or involuntarily.
Sources tell CNN that former national security officials are urging the Secretary of State, Director of National Intelligence, and the National Security Advisor not to resign so a political crisis doesn't become a national security one. Trump's relationship with the vice president is also at an all-time low, as CNN has learned he called him a vulgarity once Pence made clear he wouldn't do the president's bidding and would instead comply with the Constitution.
The votes for President of the United States are as follows. Joseph R. Biden, Jr. of the state of Delaware has received 306 votes. Donald J. Trump of the state of Florida has received 232 votes. The chair declares the joint session dissolved.
There's now talk of invoking the 25th Amendment to try to get the cabinet to remove President Trump from office. It's not just Democrats saying, it's Republicans too, including Adam Kinzinger, the congressman from Illinois, former Republican Congressman Paul Mitchell of Michigan. Do you support such an action? Should he be removed by the cabinet?
I think, Jake, that the cabinet should meet and have a discussion. I don't think it'll happen, but I think the cabinet should meet and discuss this, because the behavior yesterday and the weeks and months before that has just been outrageous from the president. And what happened on Capitol Hill yesterday is a direct result of his poisoning the minds of people with the lies and the frauds.
You were a former member of the cabinet, and in addition to being a White House chief of staff, if you were in the cabinet right now, would you vote to remove him from office?
Yes, I would. The one thing we have going for us here, Jake, is it's only 13 more days. And no one, as indicated yesterday by our vice president, no one around him anymore is going to break the law. He can give all the orders he wants. No one is going to break the law. And we saw Mike Pence, Vice President Pence, stand his ground yesterday.
I'm Stanley Tucci. I'm traveling across Italy to discover how the food is as unique as the people and their past.
Oh my God, so
CNN has just confirmed that the Transportation Secretary Elaine Chao is resigning from the president's cabinet. She resigned yesterday and is directly tying it, Brianna, to President Trump's response to that mob of his loyalists descending on Capitol Hill and breaching the halls of federal government. And this is significant because she is the first cabinet secretary so far to resign as a result of what the president did yesterday. We've heard a lot of other people are considering it. We've seen some pretty significant figures, including the Deputy National Security Advisor, resign in wake of that. But now this is Elaine Chao, the Transportation Secretary, who has been here almost every day of Donald Trump's presidency, serving with him, working with him, and defending him. And now she is resigning as a direct result of what he did yesterday. And of course, she is someone who worked closely with the president. She was obviously in the cabinet, a top-ranking official in the administration. But also this is notable for another reason, because she is married to the Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. And you saw how McConnell turned on the president in a really remarkable way yesterday that we have not seen in the 4 years that Donald Trump
He is not fit to serve.
Lecture,
He is not fit to serve.
run by the Perot Museum.
He's one of the most incompetent
This is
presidents in the history of the United States of America. And so the idea that I think he shouldn't be out of office yesterday is not the issue. The question is, what happens with 14 days left to go or 13 days left to go? And I think that what 81 million people stood up and said, it's time for him to go. And the United States Senate voted 93 to 6 to confirm that we should be sworn in. We were duly elected. So I think it's important we get on with the business, getting him out of office. The quickest way that that will happen is us being sworn in on the 20th. What
You've clearly changed your perspective on that.
Because he has clearly demonstrated, he's exceeded even my worst notions about it.
All right, thank you, Bill. And this is
He's been an embarrassment to the country, embarrassed us around the world, not worthy to hold that office. If we were 6 months out, we should be doing everything to get him out of office, impeaching him again, trying to invoke the 25th Amendment, whatever it took to get him out of office. But I am focused now on us taking control as president and vice president on the 20th and to get our agenda moving as quickly as we can.
With respect to what you just said about the inauguration and that it's a good thing that the president is not coming, but what about the vice president, Mike Pence?
I think it's important that as much as we can stick to what have been the historical precedents of how and the circumstances in which an administration changes should be maintained. And so if the vice president, is welcome to come, we'd be honored to have him there and to move forward in the transition.
Have you spoken to him at all?
No, I haven't.
And you have called for unity and healing in this country, but after the events of Wednesday, does that make your job easier or harder?
I think it makes my job easier, quite frankly. I've had a number of my Republican colleagues, former colleagues, I used to serve in the Senate for a long time, call me. Many of them are as outraged and disappointed and embarrassed and mortified by the president's conduct as I am, and the Democrats are. And I think I have said from the beginning, and I have not changed my view, my overarching objective is to unify this country. We must unify the country. And I think that you've heard me say this before, and I apologize for repeating myself, but understandably the questions are repetitive and good. I mean, I'm not being critical of the question. And that is that there's two ways people are inspired. By inspirational leaders and by terrible leaders. By terrible leaders. What this president has done is rip the Band-Aid all the way off to let the country know who he is and what he's about and how thoroughly unfit for office he is.
All so far have been attributed to human-made interference or natural sources. The latest signal is likely to have a mundane explanation too, but the direction of the narrow beam around 980 megahertz and apparent shift to its frequency said to be consistent with the movement of a planet has added to the tantalizing nature of the finding. Scientists are now preparing.
Democrats say an aggressive impeachment timeline is 6 to 7 days. That would put a first vote in the middle of next week. Now, Republicans are cautious. Most prefer to run out the clock and say another impeachment would only deepen the nation's political wounds. But there are Republicans who say the president must be held accountable. Senator Ben Sasse of Nebraska is one.
He was flagrantly disregarding his oath of office, so that's not in debate. The House, if they come together and have a process, I would definitely consider whatever articles they might move. What he did was wicked.
Republican sources are telling CNN there are more Republicans open to voting yes on impeaching and removing the president if the charges drafted by the Democrats are viewed as reasonable by Republicans. Now, the president today trying to blunt any Republican support for his removal. In a tweet, he warns his 75 million voters remain, quote, a giant voice in Republican politics and says they best not be disrespected. The defiant tone there just hours after a much more subdued video that, yes, finally acknowledged Joe Biden's victory, but that aides say the president taped only to quash rumblings his cabinet was thinking about invoking the 25th Amendment.
Now Congress has certified the results. A new administration will be inaugurated on January 20th. My focus now turns to ensuring a smooth, orderly, and seamless transition of power.
The impeachment strategy call happening right now is just one consequential new piece of the rioting fallout. The effort to bring the rioters to justice now includes a federal murder investigation. Capitol Police Officer Brian Sicknick died last night from injuries he sustained in that insurrection.
The challenge for astronomers on Breakthrough Listen and others devoted to finding intelligent life in the heavens is to spot potential techno-signatures. Among the relentless babble of radio waves from equipment on Earth, natural cosmic phenomenon, and orbiting hardware that circles the planet is no easy task.
Died overnight from his injuries suffered during the insurrection. How responsible is the president for that?
First and foremost, it's heartbreaking. My heart goes out to his family again. As someone who served in the Capitol, just like at the White House, you become friends with the Secret Service. I knew many of the Capitol Police. They are good law enforcement officers who put their lives on the line to protect our nation's leaders. And it's awful. This all could have been avoided. That would be my message. But the other message I want to make sure that the American people understand, and like I said, the 74 million people who supported this president, we lost, but that is okay. Get out and vote for Republicans if that's what you believe in. We can stand by the policies, but at this point we cannot stand by the man. When the moment called for leadership, he did not do the right thing, and lives were lost because of it.
Can I just ask you to be clear about this? Will you say that the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, lied to the American people?
He did on the election, and people around him know better. We know that the results were not going to be overturned. We knew that it was a stunt to carry this on for days longer, and I have to commend my former boss, Vice President Pence, who is a man of conviction and just the highest level of integrity. He did what his constitutional duty was. He wasn't going to rewrite the Constitution to get the outcome that he wanted.
So, Alyssa, you quit the first week of December because you say it was then that you began to realize what might happen. And you do know that there are those asking this morning, what took you so long? What took you so long?
And that's fair. And something I want to be clear about is I believed in the policy agenda and much of what we accomplished, and I am proud of much of it. We were creating the most inclusive economy in American history, record low black unemployment, Hispanic unemployment, female unemployment. I'm somebody who believes in economic opportunity. And I was willing to serve, and I also believe anytime you're asked to serve your nation, you should seriously consider saying yes. But when I lost I knew I couldn't influence outcomes when this runaway train of the election was stolen, got wind underneath it. And that's when it was time for me to step down. I wasn't going to mislead people. People I love, people I care about were believing it. They were saying, no, Alyssa, I think he's still going to pull it off. And I would plead with people personally and privately, like, please no, he's not going to. We lost the election, and that is okay. That is what happens in a democracy. Politics is cyclical. But this was bound. If you tell people their vote was stolen, so foundational to who we are as a country, of course it's going to end in violence and in riots, and it's awful.
The chances of only two civilizations in the entire galaxy happening to be neighbors among 400 billion stars absolutely stretches the bounds of rationality.
How did it happen? Who was behind it? Where do we go from here?
It's not only the statistics that look bad. Proxima b is so close to its parent star that it is tidally virtually locked like the moon
Do you
is to the
believe that
earth.
12 days gives you enough time for impeachment and removal, or is this just, would this just be a ceremonial message sent?
Stable climatic system.
You do
all
not
the
need
things you
12 days for the 25th Amendment to be invoked. You can do that in the next 12 hours.
Life forms, which
But if
certainly
they don't do it, I do believe that within the next 6 to 7 days, we can impeach, not impeach. We're not removed. That's the problem here. Because if you were impeached, that's simply an indictment. You then have to go to the Senate to be tried. And it would be the Senate that would have to do what's necessary to remove him from office. So no, I do not believe 13 or 14 days is enough to run that. But we sure enough for the Vice President and the cabinet members, for 2 cabinet members to resign. That says to me, they're running away from their responsibility. If they feel that strongly, they would stay there and wait on this meeting so they can cast 2 of the votes that are necessary to invoke the 25th Amendment.
In
They're
1967,
running
the
away.
astrophysicist Jacqueline Bell Burnell was poring over a mountain of data from a new radio telescope she helped to build when she spotted an unusual signal. It was faint but repeating steadily. After ruling out interference from earthly sources, the team discovered a little gray men. The real source turned out to be a pulsar, a spinning neutron star that emits beams of radio waves
Vice President Mike
a heavenly lighthouse.
Why and what did that mean to you?
Look, what I was saying, I disagree with so many things he's done, including, as you were saying, standing with this president. But the point is, at this moment, he was willing to read the results and declare Joe Biden and Kamala Harris for the president and vice president of the United States starting January 20th. I thought that was significant because, as you know, we have a huge part of the country, thanks to Donald Trump and his enablers, who don't actually believe that this has happened. They don't believe that they won the election. So I thought the fact that Pence stood up, as well as, could I say, my Republican colleagues who voted with us, 93 senators rejected these scurrilous claims and baseless objections together and spent the whole day together, including, by the way, the moment when Joe Biden gave remarks, and this hasn't been widely reported, and we were all shoved together in a room. And the minute Joe Biden came on, silence came over the room. The entire Senate watched his speech with respect and clapped at the end. That happened, Chris. So, to me, these were moments that I will never forget, including at 3:30 in the morning when the only senators left were Senator Blunt and myself as head of the Rules Committee, and then the Vice President, and we walked over with those remaining ballot boxes after Josh Hawley's ridiculous objection in Pennsylvania had been outvoted, and we walked over to the House and were greeted by Speaker Pelosi, and we then finished the reading of the roll call, did our job, and declared the winner of the 2020 election. So, as horrible as the day was, that moment was the moment you cherish for our democracy. Democracy prevailed.
And I think you'll find it interesting. It's posted in the notes online, so check it out. This is KE5ICS. I'll go ahead and ask any additional check-ins at this point. If anybody would like to join us, please come now with your call sign phonetically, your name, and where you're transmitting from.
Comment in 5BB. Special report, the Trump insurrection, tomorrow at 10.
Just horrifying
Bill, go
because
ahead.
things have just gone too far.
For 2 long months, Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger endured standing in the firing line of Trump's baseless attacks.
He's an enemy of the people.
And even with death threats against his own family, he never budged.
But I look at the frequency.
And then Trump's reckless lies of a rigged election culminated with this.
People have been spun out for 2 months about the election results. People have been misrepresenting the facts, spreading this disinformation, saying whatever they wanted to out on social media. And there were consequences, and we saw what those consequences were yesterday.
And when you say people, specifically, we're talking about President Trump. He was out at the ellipse.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol.
As we all know, right before the riots broke out, telling his supporters to walk on the Capitol. This was incited by the president. Do you blame President Trump, and what would you say to him?
Well, obviously, that's why I've said from day one that we have to be really mindful of our speech. Because we can't spin people up and play people and get them into emotional frenzy, emotional state. Deal with the facts, and the facts are on our side. we had fair, honest elections in Georgia.
Did he betray our country?
I believe that we have to really recognize when you hold a high office like that you're really called to call people up to a higher standard of behavior. If maybe you don't like an answer, you don't like the result, but you never want to go down the road of violence. At the end of the day, that lady lost her life. I've lost my oldest son. So I know what her parents are going through today, that grief that they're having. And it seems so needless.
And it seems this was the last straw for Raffensperger, who just last month still declared himself a Trump supporter.
Despite him sowing doubt in the integrity of the election.
Obviously would have won.
Now he admits things have changed.
Do you regret that vote? Do you still prefer that he had won this past election?
No, the actions that he's taken since then were not what you would expect from a president. When something like this happens, then his accomplishments really get negated, they get obscured, and you actually go out with a black mark on your record. And it's a shame it had to come to that. It's also a shame that many people, political leaders, elected political leaders in the Republican Party, didn't have the courage to stand and say, Mr. President, here's what the real numbers are. And I believe the real numbers.
But I mean, he still does have a grip on the party, clearly, and he still has a grip on his supporters.
I think after today, I think there'll be a reevaluation of a lot of things.
Including a reevaluation of how two incumbent Republican senators lost their seats to Democrats, making Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff the first Democrats to win Senate seats in Georgia in 20 years.
President Trump really hurt the Republican Party here on the senator runoffs, and them getting involved in that. They would have just tended to focus on their races. They would have done well. They came up short. They filled up stadiums. I get that. But at the end of the day, you got to fill up the ballot box with your vote. The other side in this race did a better job than we did as Republicans.
Raffensperger's party may have lost, but he trusts democracy will prevail, as it did in Georgia. Through the chaos, Raffensperger hasn't lost a sense of humor. He credits his wife and sons for keeping him grounded.
We're proud. They have some fun with it at times. But they're real proud. They gave me a beautiful framed picture, and it was the Lukovich article of people that were in the boxing ring, and I was the referee. And so it was kind of like that whimsical thing, and so we really get to laugh over it. And so, and that's good, because it keeps me humble, and it keeps me real.
Do you see you as a referee? And is that how you see yourself?
In this job, yes. And, and that's why the players need to learn. Their job is to win the game. It's not the player, not the referee to make one call or the other so you can go ahead and score a touchdown. Play the game fair and go out and play your guts out. Leave it all on the field.
Washington is still reeling today after a mob of President Trump's supporters, incited by his lies, breached the Capitol and wreaked havoc on a sacred constitutional process. President Trump didn't appear publicly today as aides who were shaken by his behavior headed for the exits. Transportation Secretary Elaine Chao became the first member of Trump's cabinet to resign in protest today, telling staff in an email that what happened in Washington was a, quote, traumatic and entirely avoidable event, adding, "It has deeply troubled me in a way that I simply cannot set aside." Chao, who is married to Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, joins over half a dozen officials who have now resigned, including Trump's Deputy National Security Advisor and his former Chief of Staff, who was serving as a special envoy.
I can't stay here. I got back yesterday. You can't look at that yesterday and think I want to be a part of that in any way, shape, or form.
Even those who used to work for Trump are breaking with him. Former Attorney General Bill Barr rebuked the president in a statement that read, "Orchestrating a mob to pressure Congress is inexcusable. The president's conduct yesterday was a betrayal of his office." Fearful of mass resignations, Trump committed to a peaceful transition of power overnight in a statement that had to be posted to an aide's Twitter account because his was suspended. Trump said, "Even though I totally disagree with the outcome and the facts bear me out, nevertheless, there will be an orderly transition on January 20th.
We love you. You're very special.
His words had less to do with a change in heart after sympathizing with those on Capitol Hill and more to do with growing conversations about removing him from office using the 25th Amendment.
If the Vice President and Cabinet do not act, the Congress may be prepared to move forward with impeachment. My members are very much interested, as are my phone is exploding with impeach.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi calling Trump a very dangerous person.
This is urgent. This is emergency of the highest magnitude.
Though invoking the 25th Amendment is unlikely to happen, at least one Republican is joining in on the call.
The president is unfit, and the president is unwell. And the president must now relinquish control of the executive branch voluntarily or involuntarily.
Sources tell CNN that former national security officials are urging the Secretary of State, Director of National Intelligence, and the National Security Advisor not to resign so a political crisis doesn't become a national security one. Trump's relationship with the Vice President is also at an all-time low, as CNN has learned he called him a vulgarity once Pence made clear he wouldn't do the president's bidding and would instead comply with the Constitution.
The votes for President of the United States are as follows. Joseph R. Biden, Jr. of the state of Delaware has received 306 votes. Donald J. Trump of the state of Florida has received 232 votes. The chair declares the joint session dissolved.
Said in the video, which NASA released on YouTube.
There's now talk of invoking the 25th Amendment to try to get the cabinet to remove President Trump from office. It's not just Democrats saying, it's Republicans too, including Adam Kinzinger, the congressman from Illinois, former Republican Congressman Paul Mitchell of Michigan. Do you support such an action? Should he be removed by the cabinet?
Lucy T. Manager from NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center in Greenbelt, Maryland.
And have a discussion. I don't think it'll happen, but I think the cabinet should meet and discuss this because the behavior yesterday and the weeks and months before that has just been outrageous from the president. And what happened on Capitol Hill is a direct result.
The mission takes its name from the fossilized human ancestor called Lucy by her discoverers.
You were a former member of the cabinet, and in addition to being a White House chief of staff, if you were in the cabinet right now, would you vote to remove him from office?
And the birth of our solar system more than 4 billion years ago.
Yes, I would. The one thing we have going for us here, Jake, is it's only 13 more days.
Next,
and no one, as indicated yesterday by our Vice President, no one around him anymore is going to break the law.
To send astronauts back to the moon and onto Mars to
no one is going to break the law. So much
answers about our solar system and beyond continues to inform those efforts and generate new discoveries. The agency has extended the missions of 2 spacecraft following an external review of their scientific productivity.
I'm Stanley Tucci.
The missions, Juno and InSight, have each increased our understanding of our solar system as well as spurred new sets of diverse questions. An independent review panel comprised of experts with backgrounds in
CNN has just confirmed that the Transportation Secretary Elaine Chao is resigning from the president's cabinet. She resigned yesterday and is directly tying it, Brianna, to President Trump's response to that mob of his loyalists descending on Capitol Hill and breaching the halls of federal government. And this is significant because she is the first cabinet secretary so far to resign as a result of what the president did yesterday. We've heard a lot of other people are considering it. We've seen some pretty significant figures, including the Deputy National Security Advisor, resign in wake of that. But now this is Elaine Chao, the Transportation Secretary.
Extended through September 2025 or its end of life, whichever comes first, the mission will not only continue key observations of Jupiter, but will also expand its investigations to the larger Jovian system, including Jupiter's rings and large moons, with targeted observations and close flybys planned of the moons of Ganymede, Europa, and Io. Juno discoveries. The InSight mission is extended for 2 years, running through December 2022. The InSight's spacecraft and team deployed and operated its highly sensitive seismometer to expand our understanding of Mars's crust and mantle. Searching for and identifying Mars quakes, the mission team collected data clearly demonstrating the robust tectonic activity of the red planet and enhanced our knowledge of the planet's atmospheric dynamics, magnetic field, and interior structure. InSight's extended mission will focus on producing a long-duration, high-quality seismic data set. Continued operation of its weather station and burial of the seismic tether using the spacecraft's Instrument Deployment Arm, IDA, will contribute to the quality of this seismic data set. The extended mission may continue deployment at low priority of the spacecraft's Heat Probe and Physical Properties Instrument, HP3, which remains close to the surface. Extended missions leverage NASA's large investments, allowing continued space operations at a cost far lower than developing a new mission. In some cases, the extensions allow missions to continue to acquire valuable long-duration data sets, while in other cases they allow missions to visit new targets with entirely new science goals. Next, noctilucent clouds are back over Argentina and the and Antarctica. Noctilucent clouds, NLCs, recently missing, are once again circling the South Pole, and in an unexpected twist, they just appeared over Argentina as well. NLCs are the Earth's highest clouds. They form when summertime wisps of water vapor rise up from the poles to the edge of space. Water crystallizing around specks of meteor dust of about 83 kilometers above the Earth's surface create beautiful electric blue structures, typically visible from November to February in the south and May to August in the north. This season has been unusual, though. The normal onset of NLCs over the South Pole has been delayed for more than a month as strange weather patterns played out above Antarctica. Now, suddenly, they're back and showing up in unexpected places. And the picture is not Argentina, but you can probably figure that out. Space-related birthdays: Frederick D. Gregory, January 7th, 1941. Christopher Cassidy, January 4th, 1970. Michael Foale, January 6, 1957. Guy Gardner, January 8, 1948. Then we have Stephen Hawking, January 8, 1942. And one of my favorite quotes of his is, "If time travel is possible, where are the tourists from the future?" He, of course, wanted to be an astronaut and was offered a flight on Virgin Galactic, but he passed away before commercial flights happened. He also told us not to talk to aliens. This week in space history. On January 9, 1643, the Italian astronomer Giovanni Riccioli saw a weird glowing light on the night side of Venus. He named it the Ashen Light of Venus. Astronomers have seen it intermittently since then, while others who have looked for it have not been able to find it. To this day, no one really knows what causes the ashen light. At first, people wanted to attribute it to the optical quality of telescopes. Today, many believe that the light is associated with lightning storms on Venus. It can also be the result of solar radiation interacting with the atmosphere, similar to how auroras happen on Earth. Whatever it is, it's been a scientific mystery for centuries. And January 4th, 1959, Luna 1, also known as MECTA, became the first artificial satellite to reach the moon vicinity and first artificial satellite in heliocentric orbit. Launched as part of the Soviet Luna program, Luna 1 missed the moon due to an incorrectly timed upper stage burn during its launch. As a result, it became the first spacecraft to leave geocentric orbit. All right, that's it. Back to net. WB50ZL. All right, thank you very good, Miss Brenda. This is KE5ICX. Take additional check-ins before we move to the constellation of the week. Anyone else want to join us? Please come with your call sign. Kilo Bravo 9, Sierra Oscar Kilo, Sean in Fort Worth.
AG5YM, Travis in Fort Worth.
All right, I've got QB9SOK, that's Sean in Fort Worth, and then I've got AG5YM, Travis in Fort Worth. Was there anyone else? Please come down.
Golf 5, Zulu Mike Golf, Joe in Arlington.
We've got KG5ZMG, that's Joe over in Arlington, also on Echolink. I've got you checked in, Joe. Let me look elsewhere. I got a couple of people over on the YouTube. That would be John and Bobby. I don't see any call signs. They probably are hams, but John and Bobby. Thank you, guys. Thank you for telling me about the Echolink issue. I was wondering about that too, but I think we got it nailed down. Of course, it took an hour, but when you're doing the net and everything else, it's kind of a lot of plates spinning at the same time. So my apologies. It's just one thing too many, I guess. All right, if you are online or you want to see all of the constellation pictures and charts, now is the time to do so. You'll find a direct link for the YouTube and Facebook, or if you want, you can just go to YouTube and type in DARC Skynet. Oh, so, got one. Good. And they can hear me. That's even better. So, Bobby, just click his call out. WD5. Oh, my glasses on. BPX. I don't think he checked in. I remember BP something. Okay, I got you. Very good. So we'll go ahead and get started here. Let me put up the proper thing. There we go. Miss Carolyn's constellation of the week are actually two constellations, Fornax and Eridanus. So this is what he says. He says Miss Carolyn's constellation of the week is named in honor of the science team Carolyn, KC5OZT. Carolyn contributed to Skynet each week, almost from its beginning in 2012 until May of 2019, with a detailed look at one particular constellation each week. Since there are about 52 easily visible constellations seen in Texas throughout the year, out of the 88 total constellations, Miss Carolyn covered the entire year in the sky in a year. In her honor, we have continued the tradition of a constellation per week. Miss Carolyn's constellations of the week are Fornax, the Furnace, and Eridanus, the River. Fornax the Furnace is one of the more modern constellations of the southern sky, created by French astronomer Nicolas Louis de Lacaille around 1751. He originally named it the Chemical Furnace, but the name has since been shortened to Fornax the Furnace. Alpha Furnacis is the brightest star in Fornax. Alpha Furnacis shines at a magnitude of 3.8 and is the only star in Fornax brighter than fourth magnitude. Alpha Furnacis has two proper names associated with Dalum and Fornacis. It is a binary star. The companion star, Furnacis B, shines at about magnitude 7 and is separated by 5 arc seconds. It takes about 300 years to complete the orbit. In a telescope, Alpha Parnassus looks white or yellow-white, and there are 5 or 6 other stars in the field of view. Now we'll just jump over to some of the celestial objects, non-stars. NGC 1360, Dave Hutchinson's notes in the COTM article about Fornax. Everyone who observes this planetary nebula wonders why this object is not more well known. It is a large object and not one of the typical smaller planetary nebulae that look like stars at first glance. NGC 1360 is large enough and bright enough that it can be seen through a 60-millimeter refractor and has been observed with instruments that are slightly smaller. St. Walter Scott Houston, in his Deep Sky Wonders column, called it the fantastic Fornax Planetarium. The Hubble Ultra Deep Field was taken in what looks from the Earth as an area void of anything. I think it's void of anything. No, it could be a void, actually. Most of space is a void. Dave Hutchinson pointed his telescope at the region of the Hubble Ultra Deep Field and saw nothing. However, Dave notes that today's amateur astronomers are seeing astronomical objects that would have been considered impossible just 20 or 30 years ago. And they are producing remarkable photographs of objects that rival or even exceed those produced by large observatories or space probes not so long ago. Quoting from the article, our challenge now is to see what amateurs can show 20 years from now in this small corner of space. Now we move on to Eridanus, and it's been associated with various rivers on Earth, including the Euphrates, the Nile, and particularly the Tagus, which is today the Po River in Italy. The river Eridanus is what the ancient Greeks called the Po River. In mythology, Eridanus is associated with the tragic story of Phantom, the mortal son of the sun god Helios. Phaethon asked Helios to allow him to drive the chariot of the sun for a single day, a wish that Helios reluctantly granted. Phaethon lost control of the chariot and passed too close to the sun, setting the whole mountain ranges ablaze. Zeus had to intervene to save the earth from destruction with a well-placed lightning bolt. Pantheon's blazing body fell from the chariot into the river Euphrates, the waters of which quenched the flames. Phaethon was killed, but the earth was saved. And the stars, we've got Epsilon Ariendi is an interesting star on several levels. For one thing, it is one of the nearest naked eye stars to the sun, with Epsilon is about 10.5 light years away among the naked eye stars. Only the Alpha Centauri system and Sirius are closer. Secondly, it's comparable with our sun in spectral type and luminosity. And finally, astronomers believe there is a Jupiter-sized extrasolar planet in orbit around it, making Epsilon one of the nearest stars to our solar system known to have planets. The planet takes 7 years to orbit Epsilon at an average distance of 3.4 astronomical units. Alpha Ariendi, or Archernar, the name Achernar, really means it best I can, means the star at the end of the river, and that's exactly where it is, at the extreme southern end of the constellation. It is a 0.53 blue-white star giant of spectral type B. It is also about 120 light years away. You may be wondering why such bright and easily visible naked eye star would be called a challenge object. The challenge is to travel far enough south to see it, as Achernar cannot be seen from Dallas or from most of the United States. It is visible from Florida and the southern parts of Texas, the Gulf Coast, and of course from Hawaii. It can be seen from the Davis Mountains and Big Bend regions of Texas on autumn evenings. Unfortunately, it cannot be seen during the Texas Star Party, since the sun is up at the time Achernar during that time of year. I understand that it can be seen from the El Dorado Star Party, since it is up in the early morning hours before dawn during the time of the year that the El Dorado is held. 1291 is an unusual galaxy. It looks somewhat like a spiral galaxy, except it appears that the spiral arms have been separated from the nucleus, forming a ring around the nucleus with a sizable gap between that nucleus and the ring. Next, NGC 1535 is a planetary nebula known as Cleopatra's Eye. The Astronomical Lead Guidebook, Observe the Herschel Objects, describes this nebula as small, circular, and almost stellar, with a definite blue tint. This observation was made with that same 6-inch dynoscope at 40 power. Dave Hutchinson recommends a large aperture telescope for viewing this object, as well as taking some time to observe it. Give yourself time to make out some of the details. Walter Scott Hutchinson's notes about NGC 1535 were in close agreement to David. So we have verification. And with that, there are more astronomically observing program objects in the constellations of Formax the Furnace and Denison River. I've just given you a sampling of a few of these objects. The Astronomical League has over 60 different observing programs, most of which have around 100 objects. If you observe just 10 objects in an observing program each month, then you can earn an observing certificate and pin in about a year. And that is Miss Carolyn's constellation of the week, Fornax the Furnace and Denison River. I want to thank my friends, David Hutchinson and Dennis Harwell, for their research and work on the deep sky objects that I used tonight. I also have used the website constellationguide.com for information. Next week, we'll take a look at Perseus the Hero and Camelopardalis the Giraffe, which name is almost as long as a giraffe. Next. So let's see here, 1021, I'm going to lose my voice. Space launches, I'll give, well, let's see here. You know what? Let me give just a couple and I'll be done. So we got January 14th coming up, Falcon 9 Transporter 1 launch. The actual launch time is to be determined. Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, SLC-40 is the launch pad. Falcon 9 rocket will launch Transporter 1 mission, a rideshare flight to the sun-synchronous orbit with dozens of small microsatellites and nanosatellites for commercial and government customers. Then in mid-January, we have no date yet, but we have a Launcher 1, the LNA 20, Cosmic Girl, a Boeing 747, will launch from Mojave Air and Spaceport, California. And the Virgin Orbit Launcher 1 rocket will launch on its second flight after dropping from a modified 747 carrier jet. The flight will be conducted under contract with NASA's Venture Class Launch Services Program, carrying 14 CubeSats to orbit for NASA field centers, U.S. educational institutions, and laboratories on the LNA 20 rideshare mission. I'm going to switch over to Miss Brenda. I guess it's the Brenda and Tom show this at least the second half. Brenda, you want to go ahead and give us something on the recent astronomical discoveries? WB5OZL from KE5ICX.
Goes all 5 Papa Cubby.
There was breaking station. Go ahead.
Goes all 5 Papa Cubby.
You might go ahead.
Wonderful, wonderful discussion of Miss Carolyn. Thank you, appreciate it. KG5P.
Well, we had the best there. Alrighty. WB5OZL, Miss Brenda, you there?
Yes, thank you. This is WB5OZL. This article is entitled, Astronomers Agree. Universe is nearly 14 billion years old. From an observatory high above Chile's Atacama Desert, astronomers have taken a new look at the oldest light in the universe. The observations, plus a bit of cosmic geometry, suggest that the universe is 13.77 billion years old, give or take 40 million years. A Cornell University researcher co-authored one of two papers about the findings, which add a fresh twist to an ongoing debate in the astrophysics community. The new estimate, using data gathered at the National Space Foundation's Atacama Cosmology Telescope, ACT, matches the one provided by the Standard Model of the Universe, as well as measurements of the same light made by the European Space Agency's Planck satellite, which measured remnants of the Big Bang from 2009 to 13. The research was published in the Journal of Cosmology and Astroparticle Physics. The lead author of the Atacama Cosmology Telescope, a measurement of the cosmic microwave background power spectra at 98 and 150 gigahertz, is Steve Choi, an SF Astronomy and Astrophysics postdoctoral fellow at the Cornell Center for Astrophysics and Planetary Science in the College of Arts and Sciences. In 2019, a research team measured the movements of galaxies, calculated that the universe is hundreds of millions of years younger than the Planck team predicted. That discrepancy suggested a new model for the universe might be needed and sparked concerns that one of the sets of measurements might be incorrect. Now we've come up with an answer where Planck and ACT agree, said Simone Ayala, a researcher at the Flatiron Institute's Center for Computational Astrophysics and first author of one of the two papers. It speaks to the fact that these difficult measurements are reliable. So this is in ScienceDaily.com. Back to net, this is WB50ZL.
All right, thank you, Ms. Brenda. And let's see here. We got 3 minutes. Let me see here. Let me just give a couple of things on the International Space Station and passes we've got coming up. Let me pull this up. Don't generally get to this section. But we do have 2 excellent passes, one on January 10th. This will be a minus 3.9 magnitude. It would be 5:55 in the morning. This is coming out of shadow, so it'll be overhead at about 85 degrees, and you'll see the rest of the pass. The beginning pass is in shadow. It'll reach its highest point at 5:55.19 at 89 degrees. It'll fall to the southwest at 5:58 at 10 degrees to the southeast. Then on January 16th, a minus 3.8 magnitude. That'll be at 19:22 in the afternoon, or actually evening. Out of the southwest, it'll reach its highest point at 19:25 at 80 degrees, and then it will go into shadow at 19:25 at 80 degrees. So I guess between those two, you get one whole pass.
W5ST.
The X-37B, which is the winged unmanned space plane from the U.S. Space Force, that one gives you information for January. There's one pass, January 17th at 0.5 magnitude at 18:52 in the evening. It'll reach its highest point at 18:55 at 82 degrees, and it'll fall at 18:57 at 33 degrees. So I think we're going to call it at that. Are there any final check-ins this evening? Please come out.
I'm completely operational and all my circuits are functioning perfectly. Afterglow Movie Net.
All right, so we're going to close this out. Tonight we had 33 hams participating on the air, including myself. Thanks to all who checked in this evening. We hope you'll join us here next week and every Saturday night at 9 p.m. to discuss astronomy, space, and space exploration on this net, the sky's never the limit. Well, always looking for net control stations for this and all the other DARC nets. It was mentioned what net control comprises of and how much fun it is on TechNet this evening. So think about it. If you attended that net, join us. We'll sign you up. send an email to nets@w5fc.org. You can follow topics and discussions about this net, astronomy in general, on Facebook and Twitter, and all our audio video streams, video archives, and other useful internet resources by going to the club website, w5fc.org. Until next Saturday night, this is Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X-Ray Tom, and I'll be closing the net at 22:30 on the nose, local time, returning the repeater to normal amateur use. 7-3, everybody, and enjoy the evening discovering the universe. We will be back to talk about time trap from 2017 here in about, I'm going to say about 5 minutes. It might be a little long. We'll see. I got to rest my voice for a minute. And anybody would like to take net control, volunteer. So go take a break for about 5 minutes. Come on back, and we will do time trap. See you then.
Is any to use the repeater before we began the Afterglow movie net? Alright, this is WB5OZL with our Afterglow movie. And first disclaimer, I did not pick this movie, despite what Tom tells you, I did not. And so it's not my fault. But if you like it, then okay, we'll go with that. That it's a good movie. Okay, going to tonight's movie is called Time Trap. It's a 2017 movie, filmed. A lot of it was filmed in Texas, around Austin, and then in Sonora. So it's pretty cool to see all of that. So here's the synopsis. Hopper dropped to the ground and grabbed a small mound soil and smelled it. He could smell the hemp. He looked to the right of the cave and noticed a ripped tie-dye shirt fluttering in the gentle breeze. It was obvious some hippies had passed by. He knew he would find them. In the distance, he thought he heard the song Aquarius from the original Broadway cast of Hair. If true, he knew he was close. But before Hopper could categorize his samples, a futuristic spaceman appeared out of nowhere. He wasn't alone. He was holding hands with a featureless monolith. Hopper knew what would happen next. A light show, bombastic music score, and the inevitable weird gaze from said light show. Join us for the next crazy SFM Time Trap, 2017, Saturday, January 9th at 10:30 p.m. All right, anybody who's still here, we're going to talk about this movie. We're going to do check-ins. So, if you want to get in on all the fun, give us your call sign, your name, and whether or not you saw the movie. Please come now.
Kilo Golf 5, Bravo Zulu Whiskey, Ginger Whitford. I saw the film, and showtime. Kilo Golf 5, Papa. It is very good to hear from you. I did not see the movie, despite the racism.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike, Tony in Dallas. Yes, I saw it.
Kilo 5, Alpha, November Echo, Kane in Richardson. Yes, I saw the movie.
Kilo Bravo 9, Sierra Oscar Kilo, Sean. Yes, I see the movie.
Kilo Golf 5, Mike, November Games. I did Oklahoma. I did not see the movie.
Alright, we got KG5BZWJ who did see it. KG5P, Mike. Did you see the movie?
Hello, Brenda. No, I did not. I'm watching my double right now. The 1970 something detective. But I did not see the movie. But I'll be monitoring KG5P.
Alright, N25TM, Tony, saw the movie. K5ANE, Kane, yes, saw the movie. KB9, SOK, Sean, did you see the movie?
Yes, I saw the movie.
Good. KG5. MN James did not see the movie. More check-ins, please. Well, okay, we're going to go on. We've got at least one notable absence, and I see him on the screen here, so I know he has not been abducted and carried away. Maybe he'll figure it out shortly. All right. J, KG5BZW. Go ahead. Sorry. We're going to do plot, then characterization, then special effects. So, Jay, go ahead.
KG5BZW. Okay, so the plot, hold on. Okay, well, how do I say this? It's more a world of going to, like, magic mirrors, going to a magic mirror world, and I don't know. I can't think of the analogy. I can't really think of it. I should have thought about it a little bit before. But this is the reason. I'm sure Cam. Let's just put it this way. I didn't hate the film, but it's like an episode of some kind of clone of Outer Limits or Twilight Zone. Of course, there's in the plot where, you know, I think, I don't know if it is originally Outer Limits or Twilight Zone or what. I know actually it might be a film we watched where, you know, you go into this special area and you're in the Civil War and then all of that. It just kind of seems a little bit of a revamp of that. I kind of like the evaluation of you know, the mystery of just how long, you know, what was being observed. I did not get the part where they apparently wanted to have something where the space, that one place where, you know, it was actually the I don't know, this is the one plot hole that just does not make sense, because you went the climber went up and then spent 30 minutes there and then went back down, but wasn't that the same hole they were observing the days and then realized it was the actual solstice? That didn't make any sense. Actually, hold on, let me reset. I'm going to be rambling on. I'll give it a little bit. The spaceman was kind of interesting, but kind of predictable. They just wanted to have some in contrast with the, you know, and primitive human characters, I guess, and I don't know. It like I said before, it was more of it felt more like a TV episode than anything. And that's really all I have. I think I'm
turning into potato. So I'll try to be listening to y'all's other comments, but I don't think I'll have anything else to say. So KQ5 BZW, back to that.
Okay, next up, NT5TM Tony, go ahead.
Good evening. I can really understand and see, I guess I blended that together, why this is a movie that is both liked and disliked online. It had a lot of potential, and it even made a point of having the characters reference the Goonies, a movie with a very similar, what do we call it? Inciting incident. People, the characters all go underground into a big cave, but yet not the same. The Goonies plot was very carefully constructed so that although all the characters were eventually sucked underground and transported through this very strange cave with a diabolical organ and a giant pirate ship and a scary treasure map, you know, it kept the scope bigger, and it kept us not feeling quite so trapped. This movie meant well. I did pay attention to it. They did have some interesting plot points. We did have a very wide range of times, but it didn't do a good job in its plot of helping us feel less claustrophobic, of helping us feel more about what was happening outside the cave. There were those scary Neanderthals or whoever they were who certainly weren't in the climb of the cave there because they weren't having any spiritual experiences. They were just clubbing to this everyone else they saw. And we certainly did have the wonderful Deus Ex Machina ending where the future humans from the space station recognized the enlightenment of the characters and rescued them. But it was not a spectacular plot. There are movies that wanted to be claustrophobic, like Das Boot, that made a virtue of that. This wasn't one of them. There were movies that used a cave as a pretext, like The Goonies, but that never ever made us feel trapped. But the plot just wasn't quite there. I give it, a good solid C, a very average, reasonable effort. I watched it, but just didn't quite work. NT5TM.
Okay, K5ANE, Kane, tell us what you think.
Yeah, I definitely feel a similar way as Tony there. This movie had a lot of potential, and it's kind of an interesting concept, this whole cave that exists in kind of its own time dimension, and it feels like they could have done more with it, and ultimately that's what I find disappointing about the movie. But all in all, it wasn't too bad, and the flow of the plot seemed to be pretty good. It didn't seem like things were too crazy as far as the events that happened. It's like, well, yeah, okay, there are like thousands and thousands of years in the future. Okay, yeah, humans have evolved in space and all that other kind of stuff. Like, okay, I guess I can kind of see this. When you suspend disbelief and say, okay, so there's this cave and they're just like, speeding through time kind of a thing. But at the same time, it also, by the rate of time flowing in the cavern, it also seems like kind of invalidates some of the people talking about this, spring of life and things like that. Because, I mean, if you think about it, how would anybody, if you're speeding by so fast and there's, like Neanderthal kind of people in the cave still, how would word of this thing ever really get out? Let me reset. And ultimately, that's probably my biggest issue I have with the overall plot, is I feel like, they had time flow too fast, maybe, for it to really feel too realistic to me. And ultimately, because of the fact time's just ripping by that fast, things, there's less you can do with it, because there's, if if somebody's, I don't know, and also, like, I feel like they could have done more about, like, having people go out of the cave and kind of experience what, you know, all the craziness going on and re-encounter some people from their past life, but because of the fact they're just ripping through it, like, you know, hundreds of years a minute, so, like, it's, you know, it's not, I don't know, there's less they could end up doing with the overall concept, and that ends up kind of making it a little bit weak in my opinion, but overall, I did like this movie. Probably not going to watch it again, but yeah, I'd like to see maybe a different movie with this same basic plot structure sometime. This is K5 A&E, back to net.
Okay, let's see, KB9 SOK, Sean.
Yeah, this is KB9 SOK. Yeah, I agree with the last two gentlemen. I thought the movie was just okay. Like everyone else, I felt that this had potential. I really liked the concept. I think that it was neat having an idea of when you cross down in a certain area that you are being kind of in this, some kind of time shift, where time flows differently, and I think that was a great idea. And initially I thought, okay, there's some real potential with this movie, but unfortunately the writers did fall short. They had a great concept, but just didn't follow through with it. Yeah, it did seem like time was moving too fast. At first I felt the movie was moving kind of slow and started picking up pace, and in the last half of the movie it was moving along nicely, but then at the very end it seems like they almost rushed it. You know, it almost seemed like there were some spots where they maybe either cut some scenes out or they just simply ran out of money and just decided to finish the film. You know, especially there towards the very end when they find the professor, it looks like there was another zone that was moving even slower than the zone that they were in, and beyond that zone, in the background, you can see what looked like waterfalls and this lush area, and it looks like maybe that was the place of the, you know, the eternal life, and it'd been nice for them to explore that. But instead, they just showed it for a few seconds, showing these characters stuck in time, and the one gentleman almost walked through it, and then they just left it, you know, and didn't explain it. And to me, it's like, well, that would have been very interesting to explore this second zone that was even slower in this underground world. So that was a little disappointing for me. I thought they just kind of just jumped past that and didn't think much of it. And then once they did get rescued, it was like, okay, I would have loved to have seen what the humans look like in the future, but all we ever saw was their fingers, and we never really got to see much there either. So it just seems like the very ending was very rushed, and it seems like they could have done much more with it. And I agree that, yeah, it would have been cool had they exited the cave at different times and seen more of, you know, our history, or future, I guess you should say. It definitely would have made it better. And another part of the plot, it just seemed it took the characters forever to figure out what was going on, which seemed like something that should have been very obvious for college kids, and it seems like maybe a 13-year-old might have been one of the sharpest ones in the group. So yeah, it was a movie that had a lot of potential, and, you know, and yeah, it would be nice to see somebody actually redo this and put more depth into it, and because I think it was a really neat idea. It just didn't go anywhere. So yeah, it was okay. It was better than last week's movie, but I feel the same. I probably wouldn't watch it again. This is KB9 SOK, back to net control.
Okay, thank you. This is WB5OZL. KT5MN. James, you didn't see the movie, but you have comments.
It's Kilo Golf 5, Papa Mike, November, Jameson, Oklahoma. No, I did not get to the movie tonight. Got tied up doing other things. I'll just sit back and listen. Back to the net, KT5PMN.
KT5PMN. Well, just give us a holler if you want to make any comments about anything. Okay, do we have any additional check-ins?
KG5GIS, Joe and Wiley.
saw the film.
Okay, I think that was KG5TIX, Joe and Wiley. Correct your call for me if it's not right. And did you see the movie?
No, I did not. I was just wanting to check in, and I've been monitoring all y'all's comments. Thank you. KG5ZIX.
All right, sorry if you have missed your call, KG5Z, or Z, India X-ray. K5ICX, did you double with Joe? I did not hear you. Do you want to check in tonight?
Yeah, thank you, Miss Brenda. Yes, I did double with him. So KE5ICX, Tom, Louisville, yes, I saw the movie.
Alright, so you're going to be up next to talk about the plot. Go ahead.
Alright, well, this storyline's been done before. The time traveling, time acceleration and all that has been done in everything from Star Trek to the musical Brigadoon, which is much more fun to watch, and there's singing and dancing in it, which this movie didn't have. It had a lot of whining and falling, but not singing and dancing. Maybe if they had done singing and dancing instead of, or maybe singing and dancing while whining and falling. That might have helped it. I don't know. It started out great. I really enjoyed it. We knew it was a time travel movie because it's called Time Trap, right? And you're seeing people, just slowing down. You see the cowboys slowing down and all of that, and you're wondering what's going on. Then suddenly we get in and we start seeing other people wandering around, particularly the cavemen. And that reminded me of a really terrible episode of Space 1999 with cavemen. And I started getting that nervous facial tic, realizing this film is going down in history as a really bad film. So it moved. The pacing was glacial. It's only 90 minutes long. It did start picking up at the end. I got that. But the discussion was so boring, and the people were so one-dimensional and stupid. Well, at least one of them can drive a stick shift. That's exciting. One thing time travel movies always do, or usually do, is they tell you about where you're at, or the mystery of where you're at. I know they had no money for this film, and it showed. Let us explore the area a little bit, or if there's something we can get out of the characters that are just kind of traipsing through from different time periods. The most exciting people we could find was the big, huge human guy and the cavemen? Really? That's all you can do? And by the way, what do these people eat while they're in there? I know some of them only been there a few hours, but some, the cavemen have been there for a million years. I don't know how many years, a million years, let's say. So that had to equate into days. They're not hungry. They're battling each other for, domination of the cave and the Fountain of Youth and all that. But they don't eat. Well, I guess you don't have to eat because you just go to the Fountain of Youth. Maybe that's why they're battling over it. That might explain it. I don't know. Maybe I've come to my own conclusion. I'll believe that since everything else is confusing about the film. So I did get the fact, even though, maybe it did make sense to me, I kind of picked up on it that, people were falling off the broken ropes. I think it might have been mentioned in the film, too, that they were getting old, and they'd fall down. because the ropes would fray from age and things like that. So I guess I won't talk about characterizations, but when I get there, I'm not going to have much to say. So back to net control. Wait, the comments at the very end. Spoiler alert, they get on a spaceship and head to Mars. Talk about a bunch of people, they don't care that their families are dead, the Earth is dead. They don't even get to go back to Earth. They're heading on a spaceship to Mars. And they're going, yay, and we all lived happily ever after. Don't you feel any sort of remorse or even a sense of wonder, remorse and wonder about what's going to happen? Come on, man. Even Star Trek Discovery's got that one covered better than these folks did. And that's a stretch. Okay, back to net control. KE5ICX.
Well, that's exactly what I was going to say. You know, everybody they've ever known or cared about is gone. Their pets, their grandmothers, their school, everything's gone. And they're like, oh, okay, we're going on an adventure, da-da-da-da-da. So I think this movie the script was written by teenagers. Because there was a lot of soap opera stuff of them bickering back and forth, and I couldn't tell these girls apart. They were just so generic and without any kind of interesting characteristics at all. Professor Hopper, never heard of him before. He's an actor who has two famous brothers, Luke Wilson and that other Wilson guy, Owen Wilson. He's older. They must have, maybe he just wanted to be in a movie and they just, pulled some strings to get him in this. This thing was shot around Austin, which was interesting for me, having grown up in Austin, so it just looked like home. Exterior parts were, some of it was shot in Sonora, I assume the caverns of Sonora, and some was shot in Griffith Park, which I assume to mean that famous cave out there, the Bronson Cave, that we've all seen a million times. Star Trek used it several times, and a bunch of westerns and sci-fi movies, they have used it. It's not really a cave, was carved out by, as a part of a quarry, and so that's why it has a flat floor, which is really kind of ridiculous. So, a lot of time travel movies, they at least make a stab at trying to explain how it works or explain what happened. And with these people, they just kind of accepted what's going on, and nobody ever seemed to give a thought about what's happening or how this is working. They were just kind of fumbling along. And honestly, I didn't find the characters very interesting, personally. Especially the silly teenage girls who just twittered around. What else can I say about characterization? Plot. I'm sorry. I've moved on too far. Yeah, a lot of plot holes. What did they eat? Who were they? Didn't the people from these different eras interact other than just to hit each other with clubs or shoot each other? You'd think they might, given time, learn to communicate or help each other or, join up as a part of the same tribe. All right, do we have any more check-ins? All right, let's go back to the top. Going to talk about characters. KG5BZW. Go ahead, Jay.
KG5BZW. Turns out I'm still here. Yeah, excuse me. myself. I think wasn't the plot holes I thought was a plot hole. Actually wasn't. But anyway, characters. I actually didn't mind the characters being, you know, whiny, kind of just a lot of the boy was over the top annoying. A lot of the characters and how they interacted really had nothing to do with the story. They were kind of dumb, I don't know, in some ways, but I don't know. There really could have been something better done. And I think it more relates to the whole area not being as literary, what was I say? It's more in depth as a story, as a world. Let me reset. So, you know, I can't really think of any sort of character development really worth mentioning. It's just you got these kind of annoying characters. They kind of interact with each other kind of in a typical way, but you got, of course, you've got the healing waters, which is a whole separate thing about the fountain of youth. It's the twofold fountain of youth. It time slowed down, and the waters are also healing or whatever, which was kind of weird. I'm still turning into a potato here. I don't know. The characters were almost the most annoying part of the film, and maybe part of the reason I have not. It's like I said earlier, I don't hate the film, but that's one of the reasons it's not that much above, not that bare minimum of not hating. I don't know. It's honestly the annoying kid going through all of that trauma, in which we thought he had actually died. That was probably the best part. And then, of course, they revived him later on. So I was like, oh, that was all for nothing. That was dumb. Goodness. Yeah, that was probably the best part of the kid. I mean, up and going through his little story and dying, or we thought he was dead, and then, yeah, backtracking on that was just kind of, there's a lot. I don't know. The more I think about this film, the more I'm not really liking it. It might flip some guys just not hating it too. Yeah, maybe it was a little bit of a waste of time. I don't know. Okay, I'm sorry for my ramble. But that's all I got. KG5 BCW.
Alright, NP5TM, Tony, what did you think of the characters?
Hello, San Dimas. I thought the characters in this movie were made artificially dumb. They made me long for Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, where no matter where they go in time, even when they encounter, Genghis Khan, or Socrates for that matter, who could have had no reasonable concept of a wormhole or quantum physics, each person from the past they encountered thought, oh, That's odd. Someone who doesn't look like me. It's clearly someone. I wonder why they don't look like me. And they tried to just get on with things, and they might have been surprised or befuzzled. Napoleon, tried to take over the shopping mall and so forth. But, this movie continuously seemed to make everyone just a little too dumb. The characters were much slower in catching on to the time scale difference than the audience was. And that annoys me, because surely the characters must know what kind of movie they're stuck in better than we do. But they did not. And when the writers hold back the characters, I think it makes the actors have a bad day of acting and makes the audience a little frustrated, and that's what we saw here. In a movie like Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, people caught on very quickly to what was going on. It was because they were kidnapping geniuses and famous people who were perhaps a little smarter than the average. But these characters all they worked hard, they suffered, they had real feelings, that was good. They were frustrated, they argued with each other, that was good. But they were a little too dumb, and yes, there was quite a bit of overacting with the horrible, don't look around that rock, there's something we don't want you to see. Wait, no, we can't possibly show you that, it's too awful. When something is too overdramatic and there's too much artificial suspense, and the characters are then written as complaining about it, yeah, you gotta get back into better movie making there. Holding the selfie stick up over the rock was actually kind of clever, but that was a little forced and tedious. So I think there were other movies that did a much better job. I mean, not everyone from the Neanderthal era could have been that catatonically stupid that they would just reflexively bang anything that was strange with a rock. I mean, what would happen if they met someone from another band, the clan of the next cave bear over? I think that it was a little frustrating that everyone was made just a little too dumb. And because they were a little too dumb, Aaron points out that, heck, Bill and Ted, one of them even said to Billy the Kid, you're adjusting to the vagaries of time travel very easily. Because, smart people are good at stuff. We're all smart people. When they're a little dumb and the characters aren't smart enough to move the plot along themselves, we have an ending like this one, where we have Mr. D. Ex Machina, that famous character in many poorly written movies, has to rescue them all mysteriously at the end. So I wish they'd all been a little smarter, even if I enjoyed them. NT5TM.
Okay, K5ANE. Kane, go ahead.
And once again, definitely agreeing with Tony there. And also KE5ICX on that. I think he has a very similar opinion of these characters, that they just seemed overly stupid, and it definitely weakened the plot, in my opinion, as far as because of the fact these people took so long to figure out what's going on, it really kind of reduced their ability to make the plot more interesting. I think if they would have understood the magic of the cave sooner, they would have, maybe been more interested in checking things out and checking out that big giant battle scene thing going on, raging at that other time, or figured out other interesting things to do. But these characters being the way they are is probably the main reason why this movie was as disappointing as it was, plot-wise. And it is quite frustrating having these characters that, I always get that, okay, yeah, obviously we're supposed to figure things out oftentimes as the viewer, being relatively omniscient, as opposed to, the characters figuring it out, right? Like in a horror movie, it's not as fun if, the person's like, hello, should we split up? Yeah, of course not. But anyways, stop rambling and continue talking about characterization. 1 second. So yeah, ultimately, I'd have to say that this movie is weakened by having these poor characters in the end. I did think that the professor and his character, as an overall, just kind of his character, is kind of a neat thing. The way his family history and whatnot, and tying into that, and that was kind of an interesting idea. But once again, we don't really see him too much, and don't really see him interact with anything. And then the guy from the future human coming down and whatnot, and a lot of his things are not very well explained in the end, and I don't know, it seems like they could have done a lot more with what they had, and that's ultimately the whole review of this movie, is they could have done a lot more with what they had. This is K5A&E, back to net.
Okay, KB9SOK, Sean, go ahead.
Yeah, the characters were, I agree, probably the worst part of the movie, really. They're supposed to be college-age kids. I think that, yeah, they were acting, like little children. And it just, yeah, that didn't make any sense at all. Why they were written that way, yeah, they're petty arguments, and it just, it wasn't even good banter back and forth. It was just, yeah, not good. All the characters were bad. I agree. Even the caveman, and it's odd that they didn't really come across other than anybody other than the caveman and the one cowboy, and that was really about it. I think there would have been something in between. The future large human that was down there, it seemed odd that even his character was written, seemed like not particularly intelligent either. Because you think that they obviously sent him down to rescue them, because when he played the video back for them, you think that if they took that much care to send him down there, they would have had a special message for them to let them know what was going on, or he would have learned, or they would have done research back in history and learned enough of the language to at least, have some basic communication. Once again, I guess it's kind of more plot than characterization, but it's like even the advanced human wasn't all that smart. It was just very, very generic. No real depth at all. Characters, and just, yeah, it was pretty bad. Anyway, back to net control. This is KB9S, okay.
Okay, next is K5ICX. Go ahead, Tom.
Well, Brenda, I don't know if I can add any more to the dumb characters. But while everybody was saying basically what we all knew, I went and looked for something else. I found the TimeMachineTheMusical.com. Check it out. I think there's only one of the songs available. But here's some of the things. A New Century, sung by the entire cast. Better. That sounds interesting. The Time Machine was the H.G. Wells story, of course, but it doesn't matter. It applies to our stuff. A bunch of people traveling through time at a rapid rate of speed. Who makes the rules? We are one. Think about that one when they're all trapped down below and they're all singing We Are One. Harvest time. That could have several different meanings to it, when they're being pulled up to the space station Mars thing. Again, they could sing at the end of how they began, and this is how they end. Ruler of the underworld. Oh, now that'd be great. You got the cavemen and the conquistador people, or whatever the hell that was, and the decision. Are we going on the spaceship? Hell yes, we're going on the spaceship, and we're leaving Earth. So imagine how much better this movie could be with singing and dancing and, maybe a tap dance number would be good, ticking off the time. That would have been a big help. I think that this could have been much better as a musical. And with different writers and a different story and a different director, and Maybe made in black and white. I don't know. What else can you do? Oh, and maybe as a silent film. A silent film musical. That would be interesting. Has there ever been a silent film musical? I guess it's a Follow the Bouncing Ball. Okay, I gave up on the characters long ago. So back to you, Brenda. KE5I6.
A silent musical? You're way off in the weeds tonight, Tom. Okay, do we have any more check-ins? Okay, we're going to keep going. No relief for us. Next, special effects. KG5BZW. Go ahead, Jay.
Well, I'm still here, so I guess there's something to this discussion that keep me around. So what special effects are there? There's the spacecraft. There's the time. I did like the season, the showing of the space speed up of the sky. I thought that was kind of nice. You have to slow down in between. It's okay, especially with the break. That shows how long it's been since I've been camping the chemical light deal. That they kind of had it hover for a bit as he was walking through. I thought that was a nice touch of that. The primitive humans, not so sure. It's one of those things that's like the weird placement of them. I'm not even sure what I'm looking at when I'm thinking about them. Also, I'm calling the spaceman. I don't know, the suit was kind of cool. Some of the fighting and stuff was kind of meh. And music, I don't really remember the... I don't know, I take that back. The music, I don't remember it. Except for like at the very end. And I remember the ending music wasn't too bad, but I don't know. And it seems like the beginning music, I kind of grunt, or not grunt, but kind of. And just, kind of contented with. But, I just can't think of anything. It seems like there'd be more if we're speaking of if it was, of, say, and yet, of, Mr. Williams, Jack Jones, and all of that stuff is original. And Jack Jones, I don't know. It's what the budget was. I thought let's just put it this way, for what the budget, well, I think the budget probably was, not thinking of an exact figure, but knowing it was probably a cheap film, I thought they did okay. KG5BGW.
Okay, NT5TM, Tony. Special effects.
sure the music was not really done by an orchestra, but at least they did orchestral style music instead of, whatever was fashionable in the moment. So that was good. The effects were competently done, but of course competence has gotten pretty inexpensive nowadays. They were very unoriginal. The magical CGI ladder that super tall astronaut had, yeah, I'm sure that didn't take much effort. When a character free climbed up out of the cave and saw the moonscape of rocks and the strange giant dust clouds inexplicably all rushing towards them from every direction, that's probably just some sort of plug-in, make me a dust storm. Likewise, the slight refractive barrier between different layers of, time, frequency in the cave. The effects certainly didn't detract from the movie, but they seemed really strikingly unoriginal and just like you clicked on a menu to see, ooh, what effects can I get here in this program? NT5TM.
Okay, K5ANA, ANE, Kane, go ahead.
So this movie fits into a lot of other movies, and a lot of kinds of this kind of sci-fi, where you don't necessarily need to have crazy CGI, and you don't need to have tons of effects, and to tell a sci-fi story, it doesn't need to look sci-fi. There's a lot of interesting concepts that are sci-fi kind of topics that don't necessarily rely on tons of either practical effects or CGI or any of that kind of stuff. I mean, for the most part, movie's just a bunch of people in a cave with some weird lighting going on, and that's like 90% of the special effects, throughout the film. So it's pretty basic and pretty straightforward, and the few effects that were there were done pretty tastefully, I'd say. They didn't necessarily try and go too crazy on, the future guy's, suit or anything like that, and the caveman, costumes and whatnot seemed decently appropriate, I guess I'd say. Just, overall, pretty decent. I wish that we would have seen more of that battle scene, because that's probably where we would have seen a lot more special effects and a lot more good application of that. It seemed like what they were doing as far as, that kind of force field kind of glow shimmer stuff, it was working pretty well, I think, to try and, show that there's some weird stuff, there's this weird barrier here. And I'd like to have seen more of it. Once again, this movie, it gets right up to the brim of being a pretty good movie and just stops right there. This is K5ANE, back to net.
Alrighty, next, KB9 SOK, Sean.
Yeah, it's KB9 SOK. Yeah, the effects were pretty generic. I mean, I've seen YouTube videos that have this level of effects. The shimmering, part of showing the time difference was probably the biggest effect they spent the most time on, even though we've seen that in a lot of movies before. So nothing really special there. The future human spacesuit might have been where they spent most of their money. It didn't look like it was reasonable, like it might be something from the future. Once again, when they went up into space, I was a little disappointed that they only showed you the one room. We never got to see the future humans. Then there's some hands. Once again, it would have been nice. I'm guessing they probably just didn't have the budget for it. And probably the worst effect was when the tentacles came down to grab them. Those were very clearly CG. I mean, it didn't even try to cover that. That was probably the most generic effect they had. That was the worst. I would have thought the fountain of youth, the one that really wasn't a fountain, it was just a mud puddle. I would have thought they would have made that a little more fancy looking, like it was intentionally put there by some kind of intelligence or some, many years ago, but it's just basically a puddle. I guess it was okay for what little effects there was, but it For something made in 2015, I would have expected a little better. That's all I got. This is KB9SOK, back to net control.
Alrighty, next, KE5ICX. Go ahead, Tom.
Thanks again, Brenda. Let's see. Special effects, there weren't a lot in the film, so let me go with standard effects. Lighting was good. Sound was very good. No problems there at all. It was inexplicable with being in the tunnel how they got all the lighting. But I noticed there was some backlighting on rocks and things like that. As though it were a tourist attraction, then maybe there might be a sign or two around the corner that says exit to, I don't know, the 23rd century maybe, you know, or the bathrooms, or something along those lines. But it doesn't matter. Everybody was right about special effects. I used to watch a program. It's no longer around anymore. It was called Film Riot. They talked about making movies, especially inexpensive movies, and the special effects and how they used I forget what it is, one of the premiere programs. I know Final Cut Pro was one they used, but, you know, and it does take a bit of effort to be able to make those things look good and realistic, so you got to be skilled at that. You can make bad special effects, but we all know, too, that you can do some pretty darn good things if you know what the heck you're doing. So this film lived up to that. I think that overall it's very professional. Now, one of the things that was mentioned I found is that Netflix financed the film, probably at a very low rate, but they did finance the film, and so there was some actual money flowing in. I do wonder, though, as was mentioned about the battles and all that, and coming to a swift completion. It's only 90 minutes long. I'm pretty sure they ran out of money with whatever they had and had to come to a swift conclusion, or cut out scenes that didn't make it into the film. Typically, movies are 2 hours these days. 90 minutes is unusual. Although this movie could have been done in about 15, it would have made a nice ad for television, I think. So I don't know what else I can add to that, but considering where it was filmed and how it was done, I think that the technical aspects of the film, maybe not the special effects, but the technical aspects of the film were very good. I think folks could probably get jobs off of what they did, just not the writer. He's not getting nothing, and the actors aren't getting anything. But the director might, and the sound people, and the cinematographer, and all of that. This would be a good demo film for them if they don't expose the poor movie makers or the studios to too much of the film. Give them about 3 minutes of it and say and don't feature the actors for too long. KE5ICX.
Okay, thank you. This is WB50ZL. I didn't see anything special about special effects. You know, there just wasn't, you know, they did some stuff with lighting. Other than that, you know, wasn't much going on. The music was okay, I guess. It wasn't real offensive, but it's going to take more than that to save this movie. And did I hate it? No, didn't really hate it. But am I going to watch it again? Nope, not at all. I'm a big fan of time travel movies, but this one just didn't muster, in my opinion. All right, any more check-ins? All right, we have any final comments? Just give me a call and we'll circle back around if you want to talk about anything.
November
November Tango 5, Tango Mike.
Kilo 5, Alpha November Echo.
Okay, NT5TM. Go ahead, Tony. What you got for us?
You know, Tom hit a nail on the head, and I didn't realize it. Whenever you get a low-budget or odd movie, usually a hallmark of that is that the sound is bad. They didn't have money for overdubbing. The boom operator was somebody's cousin's former roommate, so the location sound was really bad. And so you get all sorts of inconsistent sound levels, and dialogue is hard to understand, and so on and so forth. This movie didn't do that. Very surprisingly, for such a, I don't know, sort of oddball, off-the-wall thing, everyone was always understandable, and the sound was very consistent. I should have been tickled that they got that technical part right, but I wasn't. So thank you, Tom, for pointing that out. NT5TM.
Okay, K5ANE. What do you have for us?
So I definitely understand the archetype of that young boy character, but I almost feel like they really overdid that character to a certain extent, especially early in the movie when you're introduced to him. I understand they're trying to establish him as that kind of character, but gosh, I don't know. It just seemed like all of his lines were just so annoying, like overly annoying, which I guess it works then, you know, if they're trying to make him that kind of, you know, weird odd kid that always has weird quips about everything, and, you know, eh. But anyways, yeah, that's it for me. K5ANE, back to net.
Okay, anybody have any other comments tonight? Alright, looks like we're going to wrap early for a change. Tom, what you got next week for us?
Well, Brenda, this one is also a time travel movie, but it's actually pretty good. It is virtually unknown. It came out in 2002. It is a foreign film. It's called Russian Ark. And what you'll find fascinating about the film is it's all done in one take. That's it. Probably the most amazing thing about the film is how they orchestrated the one take. Back to you. I will, oh, by the way, if you want, I'll give you the info. Most of you already know, but if you're listening and you don't know what the movies are or any of that, you can go to Afterglow Movie. That's 2 words, Afterglow Movie, on the Facebook.com website and sign up. Or you can send an email to me at my call sign, KE5ICX, Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X-Ray at yahoo.com. And I will send you the movie, and if the movie is available for free, I will send you the link along the way, and I do that about 99% of the time. That's it, Brenda. Back to you, KE5ICX.
Okay, well, we're going to wrap this up. It's 11:41, so we can go to bed a little earlier than usual, maybe. This is WV5OZL clear.
I noticed you couldn't run away fast enough, Brenda. WT-90.